What if your anxiety, exhaustion, burnout, irritability, and even postpartum rage weren't just emotional? What if your nervous system was physically depleted? In this episode, therapist and integrative practitioner Atara Parkinson breaks down the connection between trauma, minerals, stress, postpartum depletion, and nervous system regulation, and explains why so many people are told their lives are normal while their bodies are still screaming for help. If you've ever felt exhausted, overstimulated, emotionally reactive, or stuck in survival mode, this conversation can completely change the way you understand healing.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Lunar Counseling Podcast. I'm your host, Kiara Brown, a licensed professional counselor, EMDR certified therapist, certified hypnotherapist, and the owner of Lunar Counseling. This podcast is a space for grounded, real conversations with therapists, healers, and guides about the deeper layers of mental health, trauma, embodiment, and what truly means to heal in an integrated, sustainable way. Today, I am so happy to have one of my favorite humans in the world on. It's Atara. Atara is a licensed marriage and family therapist who has been practicing in this field for over 14 years. She has continued to deepen her clinical work by becoming a certified integrative practitioner, blending traditional psychotherapy and holistic and brain-based approaches to healing. Her current passions include holistic healing, supporting postpartum mothers, brain spotting, therapeutic intensives, and educating clients on the powerful role of minerals, the role this girl's pregnant out. Her system regulation. She believes that sustainable healing requires supporting both the emotional and physiological foundations of well-being. Evaluation and rebalancing are core goals in her work. She helps clients move out of depletion and internal patterns into greater regulation and clarity and embodied resilience. Hey, I'm so glad that you're here. I've missed you so much.
Oh, thanks, Kara. That's so sweet. I missed you too, and it's so wonderful to be able to be here and connect.
Yes, definitely. So tell me about your journey to be a therapist. What brought you here?
Yeah, growing up and in my younger years, there was not necessarily a pull to this field. And I really think I watched my mom's actually a therapist, and I watched her because of life circumstances pretty much burn herself out and have to take on a really maybe heavy caseload, big caseload to provide for us. And it felt like that often at the end of the day, she didn't have a lot more to give as a mother. And I definitely understand that now. So I developed I don't want to do that. That's not how I want to be in life or show up for my family. And so I really went a different path. And I ended up studying global studies in my undergrad because I love cross cultural connections. I love understanding culture, how culture impacts the way that we operate in life is a huge passion of mine. And I thought that I was going to go live overseas, run a nonprofit somewhere, be in that whole world. Long story short, that didn't end up happening. And essentially, someone was like, "You should go to grad school. You would be a great therapist." And I was like, "Okay." I kind of just really nonchalant shrugged. But in my first semester, really figured out pretty quickly, I really love this work. And I loved this work because number one, I love humans. I love connecting to others. I'm probably maybe a little bit more of a unicorn therapist because I'm an extrovert. A lot of therapists are introverts. So I had to really learn to pause, to not say as much. That was really a lot of my graduate school work was like, okay, just be quiet, Atara, it's okay. But I love connecting with humans and I love helping humans. And I think we get the privilege, right, of being in such a sacred space with people where people say, I've never said this out loud before. I've never shared this with anyone. And then we also get to be with them in the heaviness, the darkness, but also their triumphs. Right. And we get to see that progression happen. And that's why I love the work that we do.
Yeah, that is amazing. So it's interesting too, like, you were like, "Yeah, no, I don't wanna be a therapist," but like, my mom was burnt out and, like, she couldn't give us anything, and I was like, "No, yeah, this is the world I wanna be in."
Yeah. Yes. And I'll say too, then that also has influenced where I am now because I am a mother of 4, and so, like, how can I run my business and care for myself and care for my body without reaching that point of being completely burnt out that I'm not able to be present, right, in my home. And let me caveat real quick, I don't want to bash my mom. She's a wonderful human. She's a great mom. And there were some places, right, where I could tell she was struggling. But yeah, so like, how do I also make this sustainable? If I love this work so much, I also want it to be balanced and sustainable for my whole life.
Total respect. And yeah, obviously, you're not saying that your mom's a bad mom, but as a therapist, like we know, like this work is a lot. Like,
Yes.
like the mental and emotional load that we carry for our clients is heavy, and it can affect our bodies a lot.
Yeah, so heavy. And that really then leads into this next piece or part of my journey, which was a season for me in my graduate work when I was getting my hours, when I was completing my education of disconnecting or ignoring my physical body. And what that ended up looking like was doing my classes, doing my practicum of 20 hours with emancipated foster youth. So that's a heavy population.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was working full time with another super heavy population, which was men who had been incarcerated on a life sentence and had been released. So that's not a small that's not a light, easy breezy topic or population either. There's a lot of trauma there as well. So I was a case manager for them. And then I was training for half marathons. So yeah, I was running miles and miles pretty much every day. And then Kira, I wasn't eating, right? Because I'm in my early mid 20s having all of these images about the perfect body and what we need to look like as women. And so I wasn't nourishing myself hardly at all. Or I joke that like I was eating sunflower seeds and Slurpees was like my lunch, right? And so you can see with all of these kind of accumulating together that, yeah, that my body eventually, essentially a couple years out after that was like, no more, man. We can't do this anymore. And we didn't really have the language or wasn't popular back then, but now I know what I experienced was essentially adrenal fatigue or chronic fatigue, burnout in the really physical sense. I had the motivation, I had a desire to keep going, to keep showing up in life and doing all the things, but my body literally said no. My body was like, "We are done. We're not doing this anymore." And so I would get up. What this looked like was getting up for my day and getting ready and heading out the door to I graduated at this point, my big girl job, my first therapy job in community work. And my body would be so tired and be so depleted that I would have to lay back down for an hour, take a nap, 45-minute nap. And this cycle would happen like 3 times in the day.
Wow.
Where I would be at my desk at work and I would put my head down and, like, literally just pass out there. So that wasn't sustainable, as you can imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Okay, wait, like, I'm 25, my body shouldn't be this tired. What is happening?" And I went to a doctor on my insurance panel. He's great. We're going to run the labs. And I'm trying to fix this myself. I'm like, what can I do? How do I need to maybe take this food out? Do I need to pivot this way? What can I do to support my body in making the energy that I need? And he ran the labs and I came back a couple weeks later and he's, okay, great. I don't know. Nothing showed up on your lab work. And I went, what do you mean? I don't know. It looks good. Maybe try eating more greens. And at this point, I am on a raw vegan diet because I have tried. I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Like, I guess I'll just try this because I read somewhere, right? This is gonna help my body. And I like looking at him, I'm like, that's not the issue. And that's like literally all I'm eating these days. And to speed up a little bit, long story short, I ended up finding a integrative doctor and she runs a panel that looks at your neurotransmitters. And what we find is that my fight or flight neurotransmitters are through the roof. They are off the charts. You cannot even see where they end. And
Gosh.
Yeah, it was really intense. I still have a picture actually of that chart, and I still remember being like, I don't know what this says, but it does not look good. And my calming neurotransmitters, right, that help us sleep, that help us relax, were bottomed out. They were completely, they were non existent on the charts in the opposite direction. And what
Wow.
she yeah, and what she said to me was, "Okay, essentially what we're seeing here is that your fight or flight neurotransmitters have been in overproduction for a very long time, and your calming ones have tried to produce and keep up to keep you balanced, but they can't any longer." And this is a combination of a couple factors that are important at play. One being some like long-standing trauma in my family history. One being that season that I was telling you about where I'm really trying to achieve and I burnt my body out. One being my body not having the raw material, the nutrients, vitamins, and minerals it needs to keep producing and making ATP energy. Right? There's all of kind of these factors that really contributed to me having this crash. And
Yeah.
so I started this journey of getting that back. And the first step of that was getting the junk out, right? Getting a lot of the foods that I realized weren't supporting my body, like the sunflower seeds and Slurpees for lunch. That's let's just trade that out for a meat stick and an apple, right? That might be a better way to go. So I started learning simple changes, right? How can I do this sustainably so it doesn't feel overwhelming? Because also when that you're that tired, you can't cook. Right? You don't have the energy to or motivation to make meals for yourself. So I started with really easy switches and I got a lot better until a couple of years later when I got pregnant and faced my first postpartum. And that's when more of the emotional stuff came up and out for me. And when I to put it precisely is I really was experiencing postpartum anxiety, which displayed itself in postpartum rage or anger. And the anxiety was I can't control this. I don't I whatever situation, the baby falling asleep, for example, was a big one for me. And I don't know what to do about this. And because I feel out of control, I would get angry. This anger would bubble up in me. And so that's really what led me down this path to the integrative work of how can we recognize that our mental states are interconnected with what is happening in the physical body and on that biochemical layer.
What is it's so true on so many levels. 'Cause I'm thinking about my own health journey, like working with
Mhm.
my holistic doctor and like just how Western doctors that don't always do those things, like leave so many things off the table, like that could have been done to help people. Because if you
Yes.
did just a blood panel, you're not hitting everything because insurance doesn't cover everything. And it
Yes.
is,
Huge, such a good point. And even I want to just even speak to that specifically for a moment, which is blood work is amazing. Blood work gives us a lot of insight. What most people don't even realize is that blood has to stay in homeostasis to some degree because it has to keep us alive. If our blood gets too far, right, our magnesium goes too high or too low within our blood, that has a real impact, right, on us and our ability to stay alive. And so blood is actually one of the last places that a deficiency is gonna show up. And most people don't know this. And this is why I run a hair test. Hair for the body is I kind of refer to it like an extracurricular, if you will. If we have hair or not, does our life depend on that? No, it does not. Right? All my hair could fall out and I would be fine technically. I would still be able to walk around. So a deficiency in the body's going to pull from a space like that to keep these other spaces, your organs functioning, your blood in homeostasis, to keep you alive. And so you could be walking around, and I've heard it many times from clients. I'm not deficient in magnesium. My blood work came back fine and said I had plenty of magnesium. I'm like, yes, in your blood. That doesn't mean that you have the magnesium that you need for all of these different processes to operate and to function appropriately in your body. Does that make sense?
Total sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. There are other options. There are more ways to understand what is happening in the body and to look at how we're coping, how we're doing than just blood work. Hair, the test that I mentioned was actually urine, right? We actually sent my urine off to like Germany or somewhere, right? Which is so funny to think about. But there are other ways to look at how is the body functioning, how is the body doing outside of blood work. But blood work in our medicine system is the standard, but it is not the only thing to be looking at. And there are alternatives out there for people.
Yeah. And I love that too, because right, some people would put so much emphasis on my blood work was fine, but I was still feeling such a way. I'm like, yeah, because I would say your blood is like a snapshot in time. It's not
Exactly.
like the long period stuff that's been actually going on
Yes.
with you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Great point. You can eat a steak that morning for breakfast before you get your blood drawn, and you might not show up. The iron, low iron might not show up. Yeah, you just ate the steak. The iron is circulating in the blood. It's there. But if you had some banana for breakfast instead, that blood work would show up really different because it is one moment in time versus a hair tissue mineral analysis, for example. It actually shows over a 3-month period, which is so fascinating. So you are not just saying this is where your magnesium is. It This is what has happened to your magnesium over that 3 month. It's either fluctuated this up or down and in relation to some other important minerals because minerals are synergistic in the body, meaning they work with one another. That's the other common mistake I'll see people make, unfortunately, is, oh, my calcium, especially for women, right? After babies, maybe you're getting to that postpartum period. My doctor told me to take more calcium. I need calcium. We're going to take a synthetic supplement of calcium. Unfortunately, calcium works really closely with magnesium, potassium, and sodium. And so when you're taking that calcium, you are unknowingly pushing down or up those other three. And then that has real implications for your hormone production, for your mood. When we think of calcium, we think of calcification. If you've seen maybe on your shower head, that white residue it's rigid, right? It is hard. That's the word I use, hard. And that actually can happen inside the body when we have too much calcium. And that can happen specifically around the shell of our cells. And when that happens, the magnesium and potassium that need to get inside the cells can't get in. And then what this ends up looking like in real life, right? Why it matters to the listeners, me and you out there, is then maybe I'm more irritable. Maybe I'm inflexible. I'm having trouble shifting my mindset. Or as moms, I think of, right, when a circumstance changes, right? The kids do something. Yeah. And oh my gosh, now I have to pivot and I have to do that. And if you really struggle with that, right? And you have a breakdown, even a mini mental breakdown around that,
Yeah.
might be an indicator, right? Let's look at maybe you're not getting enough magnesium and potassium, especially inside the cells, to support that flexibility or being responsive to the situation that's before me.
It's that's so true. And like I have heard that when you take calcium or even magnesium, like you have to take it with potassium and all the other things as well, because for maximum absorption and for actually work better in your body appropriately.
Exactly. And some of that is even more nuanced, which is why if you're going to make any changes, I really recommend knowing very specifically what's happening in the body first, right? Not just guessing. I know that's the easier path. I just feel like that might work. Let me take more of that. But yeah, it can have some pretty profound impacts on our body's ability to do what it's made to do. So, like magnesium, the magnesium that I take is paired with boron. Why? Because magnesium needs boron as a cofactor. It helps it absorb in the system and in your body. That's important, right? And like you said, magnesium and potassium in particular, they're my favorites, especially for moms out there because they're the calming minerals, right? They help our nervous system take a deep inhale, if you will, and like support that calm, which gets so dysregulated, right? When we have so much stimulation around us and demands for our attention, if you will.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a great point too, is we want to make sure we are looking at the whole picture and not just hyper focusing on one mineral.
Well, so true. Like working with my functional doctor, like the balance of hormones because of my PCOS, we've been doing with so many natural supplements with it. And like honestly, the biggest one is like basically a Christmas true plate vitamin, which is basically just green vegetables. That's but it's just something to help with the estrogen because when your endocrine system is so out of whack, it throws
Yes.
everything off.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I love minerals because and I should say I start with the minerals as well with everybody because they are the foundation and they impact every system in the body. They are needed or required for your neurotransmitters, for your hormones to produce, for your endocrine system to do the functions, your thyroid to work, right? For your cardiovascular system, for your digestive system, literally, right? They are required for all of these. And I want to be clear too, I do not do it all. I am not a medical professional. So I can't run a hormone test or look at maybe a stool sample. That is out of my wheelhouse. I am very clear about that with clients. This is what I do. And then once we get that in balance, I'm going to send you to someone, right, who is going to do maybe I have really big concerns around my digestion. I want to make sure that's happening. Great. Let's get your minerals balanced and those in the proper place. Guarantee you will see shifts in your digestion because of that, but it might not resolve everything. Maybe you have some bad bacteria happening in your gut, candida growth, overgrowth, or something like that. Okay. And then we want to hit that. Right. And so I'm going to send you to someone who specializes in that. I have an amazing network of practitioners that they're going to look at that more specifically. But I always say to people, start though with the minerals because you will see improvements and you will see shifts and then you can add on those other layers of a more specialized support.
Amazing. Where does it go for this training? Also, this is not something I've covered in grad school.
Yeah. Oh, good point. Yes. No. So the first layer that I did was obviously when I felt the impacts for myself, right? Of, oh my gosh, wait, hold on. When I changed my diet, my postpartum experience completely changed. I was not riddled with anxiety. I did no longer was ragey, right? At my spouse, at my children, at people in my vicinity. What the heck? How did that change so dramatically? So that's when I really started digging into kind of what you call the alternative, right? Or what I call integrative mental health. And so the first layer of that was the certification in integrative as an integrative mental health professional. And that was a more broad overview, which was it was great. I learned a lot. But yeah, speaking more about maybe hormones, talking about movement, the importance of movement for our bodies, for our nervous systems, learning about nervous system regulation tools was in there, learning about some diet changes, right? What are the raw materials that we need to produce more GABA in the body to bring the body into regulation? And that is what foods are nourishing. That was the first step. And then later within myself, I started learning about first minerals. And that's really what moved the needle for me and my own life. And I went, whoa, this is something I've not heard almost anyone, especially in the field of mental health, talk about. I need to know this. I need to learn this because it totally shifted. It's interesting. A phrase that I say is minerals dictate perception. So minerals, if you can imagine like a lens, right? We're both wearing glasses today, right? If I took these off, girl, my world's gonna be blurry, right? Same, yes. And selenium will help that. Just as a little tidbit for everyone out there, you can take a food-based selenium called selenoxel. And that helps with eyesight, funny enough. And I've actually improved my eyesight when I take that type of selenium. Anyway, side note. So when I was talking about minerals, so that's what I started to notice, right? Is wow, my perception of the world really shifted, right? I didn't feel so overwhelmed. I didn't feel, I guess I'll say like under attack is how I always felt when my kids were young. Oh, I can't do that. I can't go out there because it'll be dangerous or this will happen or they won't get the sleep they need. It always felt my world was under attack. And when I got the minerals on board, oh, like we can do things. We can be at peace. We can go here and shift and adjust. And so I'm taking a course. Oh, HTMA Success is what it's called. And shout out to Susan. She's amazing. And Susan actually is a clinical psychologist. And she noticed in her practice and in her own life as well, wow, minerals are really important and essential for good mental health. They really dictate, right, for mental health.
Yeah.
And she has started to teach other practitioners how can you integrate this into your own practice with your clients? How can we in tandem teach the tools that we use every day, right? Whether it's regulation tools, whether it's trauma processing tools, whether it's like coping skills, right? Like distress tolerance and DBT or growth mindset, right? These are all skills that we teach our clients and they are important and they are absolutely necessary. Those need to go nowhere, right? Everyone needs to learn these, right? How do I deal
Yeah.
with my emotions? Yeah, for sure. And the and that I'm going to add here is, and our body also needs the substances, the vitamins, mineral, the raw material to incorporate those tools. Because if I am so dang depressed or so dang anxious that I can't even approach or integrate those tools because of my biochemistry, I'm not going to get very far. And the example that I'll use was my sleep. When those fight or flight neurotransmitters were through the roof, I was waking up 17 times a night. Yeah, we tracked my sleep with a little sleep monitor that I wore for a couple weeks. And you could see on the charts every time my body would come out of that deep restorative sleep, and that has an impact on our body, right?
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't clear the debris cells. Our brain can't reset and do the filing that it does when we sleep. None of those processes can happen. And that's why if you're sleeping at night, you're like, technically, I'm sleeping for 8, 9 hours, but I'm waking up exhausted. It's because your body can't enter, most likely, I won't say for sure, but most likely is your body can't enter that deep restorative sleep that it needs because it doesn't have the raw material to be able to do that process. And so that's really, I'm so privileged and honored that I can learn the nuances there of how to support people. And the other thing that I hear a lot is I did therapy, right? Or I've tried therapy and something was amiss or something didn't, it didn't seem I learned the skills, but like then there's this like gap between the implementation of the skills. I'm going to say maybe you need an integrative approach that looks at, let me do both of these together. And I really truly believe that's what gets us the best results in working with clients.
Richard, I love that. So I'm just thinking though, because I've always been intrigued in this stuff myself.
Yeah,
Haven't actually got interested in it. But so you're fully virtual, correct?
I am.
So how are you doing these tests with your clients?
I love it. That's a great question. So I have a little pad and it has an envelope for you. And it also has, I'm going to call it a scale, but it's just a piece of paper that you fold in a special way and you can weigh the hair. And when you put enough hair on it, it like falls in the other direction instead of staying upright. So I send this to clients and you get to you cut your own hair. It has instructions. You cut your own hair in the comfort of your home. You put it in the envelope for the lab and you send it off to the lab. and then the lab processes it. It's a very actually fascinating process. They burn it down and they're able to read the mineral levels. What is left, if you will, is like the essence of who we are, which is our minerals. I know, isn't that I love it. I love it so much. And then that's how they read, right? What has been happening with your mineral levels. And then they send that information to my account. And then the next step there is when I get the results back, I contact my client. I say, good news, your results are back. Let's schedule a session to talk about the findings. And we'll go through that together. Obviously, they get a copy of the findings as well, so they can see for their own eyes what's happening. And we go through that. And I basically interpret it for people. And I say, see this one right here? Your magnesium is through the roof. That actually doesn't mean that you have all the magnesium you need. It means your body is burning through that magnesium really quickly. And then my client will say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. You know what? We moved. We moved about 2 months ago. And that was moving is so stressful, packing up all the stuff here. Oh, okay. That makes sense, right? That's why so what can we do here to get some more magnesium in your body, for example, to help mitigate that stress? That's just one, right? There's, I don't know how many are on there. I want to say about like 15 minerals, including heavy metals. And then we also have a section for the mineral ratios. So what's like your magnesium level to your sodium, for example? Are those in balance? Because if they're not, that's also going to have an impact on your body.
Wow. That is so cool. So that's basically like this people like trim off the ends of the hair essentially.
Yeah, you need actually a piece close to the base of your head because this end grew out whatever, however long ago, maybe a year ago is the end of your hair. But close to your base is where the most recent readings will be because that grew out recently. And for women, we would take a little piece right from underneath our head down in there. So it's not super obvious. We don't want to take it from the top. And you'll cut that off. There's a certain amount that you want to get. And again, that little scale that I was talking about, right? We'll put it on there just to make sure that there's enough of it that they can read. And then you just send that in. And I love it because it's non-invasive. It's really easy. I do this on children as well. I have a lot of clients with ADHDers. And they are like, oof, we're really struggling. I don't want to put my kid on medication. I'm not knocking medication. It's great for some people, but I do have clients that prefer not to. And so what can I do instead? And I'm like, great, let's look at their mineral status. ADHDers are typically shown to be deficient in 3 things: zinc, magnesium, and calcium, right? And that's typically the results we see when we get that hair test back. And then we move from there. How can we get more of this in the diet? Do we maybe need to supplement with some things to support the body at first? And we build a little protocol that is practical, that doesn't feel hard to do or too invasive for the client. It really depends on the person's lifestyle. Some people, I always say you have more time or you have more money. And so which of those are you willing to make a sacrifice in? We don't have the budget, right, to be maybe buy oyster pills to get more zinc and copper in. Okay, great. Then let's talk about how can we use diet and maybe investing a little bit more time into getting some more zinc heavy foods.
It's like almost like thinking of my son because like he's been having some issues too that I've been like trying to figure out how to help him with.
Yes. Oh, perfect. Yeah. So we would run an HTMA, and that would be a great starting point. The other thing I love about HTMA, and Kiara, you probably know this because you've done some alternative work with doctors, is unfortunately, most of this is outside of the realm of insurance and our typical medical system. So people will come to me and they'll say, I have spent thousands, right, on alternative testing and on a naturopath or integrative holistic doctor. I've spent $5,000, $7,000. Yeah.
It's not cheap.
Yeah, it's not cheap. And I remember actually, I'm like, and this was years ago, I think I spent a good 2 to 3 grand on the doctor that I was working with. What I love about the hair tissue testing is it's affordable, right? We're looking at my time and the hair test, sending it in, and we get lots of information from it, all under $300. Yeah. And that's what I love about it, is it's not we're not making thousands of dollars investment to feel stuck or in the same place. We can do it at a pretty reasonable cost.
It's pretty fascinating. So one of your other questions is like the NICU moms. So like how do you always recommend this like for the NICU moms? Because obviously after having a baby, we are so depleted because babies are like leeches and look, they're adorable. But look at that.
Adorable leeches. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. So, for those listening out there that don't know me and know my story, I actually had 3 NICU babies. And they're all full term. No one was a preemie. They were all unexpected NICU stays, but it was traumatic, which I didn't realize until years later. And it really very much impacted my nervous system and the way that I was able to show up as a mom. And God bless you. That's okay. So it really impacted the way I was able to show up as a mom. And I really think it contributed to that postpartum anxiety, which is fairly obvious. So I'm so proud. I've just launched a course for NICU moms that are out of the NICU and you're in that postpartum phase and you're going, why am I still reacting? Why do I
Mhm.
still feel, or why does my body still feel like it's in the NICU? Here's why. We're going to lay it all out and look at that. And I actually have a whole module in that course on what the term has been neuronutrition and mineral psychology. And those are just fancy words for what has happened to my brain and what nutrition do I need to recover, as well as the mineral aspect. And I was talking about the calcium shell earlier, right? So in trauma, our calcium shell spikes, it goes through the roof. And there's that protective shell around the cell. And when we think of this from a survival perspective, that makes absolute sense. An example that I use here, right? Yeah, is if we get into a car accident on the highway, do I want to be sitting there in the middle of the dangerous freeway sobbing because I just got in a car accident? No, I do not. That is not safe. So our calcium shell goes up essentially to blunt our affect or to blunt the emotional experience for a short time so I can get myself to safety.
That's so awesome.
It totally makes sense. The problem that happens is that calcium shell stays up, especially when we go through something like a NICU experience that is an extended time of survival mode, whether it's 3 days or 6 months. Babies that stay in there for that long, mom's system and potentially dad's too really stays in that survival mode on hyper alert in however that's showing up. It can look different, or even that freeze state of the nervous system can happen. Yeah. So absolutely, it's so essential for moms to understand what has happened to my brain, what has happened to my nervous system, but also what has happened in the biochemical level and how can I support my body in recovering from what we experienced.
And that is so true. Like my nephew, my was like both two of my nephews from my brother had
Mhm.
NICU stays. And they weren't in there super long. I think one was in there for a month and one was in there for just a few weeks. But still,
Oh,
that was a lot for my brother and sister-in-law. They could
yes.
have to be down the hospital all the time, like then back and forth. Well, burn up my brother's time off. So he couldn't actually be home
Oh,
with my nephew whenever he actually came home from the hospital because his work wouldn't let him. Like all these things happened, and it's like a lot on families.
it's a lot. And like you're saying, one of the mindsets that I hear so often because you're in that survival mode, whether it's for the couple days or for the month, is I can't take care of myself. I have a baby that I need to get to, that I need to take care of, that I have to drive back some people 2 hours, right? I know I was about an hour drive from the NICU. Actually, twice. We were about an hour away, our home, right? And so, like, the driving back and forth. And so, mom and dad's care absolutely comes last, especially in that season. And then what we see, what it's very common is it doesn't stop. The baby comes home, but our system has now shifted into that survival mode and needs support in shifting back out, in getting into a state of, okay, both of these can exist at the same time. I can care for my baby and take care of my baby, and I can feed and nourish myself. But a
Yeah,
lot of families, moms and dads, need support getting back into that kind of mindset.
that is so true. It is hard. Like, even without Nikki stay, like, I did not take care of myself that whenever my kids were born.
Good point. Absolutely. Yes, this is common with postpartum moms just in general, right? Is especially our first time around. It's so jarring. It's how can I wait? I'm holding a sleeping baby. If I put the baby down, then he's gonna wake up or she's gonna wake up. How can I feed myself? So even for moms that haven't had a NICU experience, learning and finding the different creative ways to get support, to get nourishing food in. Sometimes we just need help with that, and that's okay.
My son, he's my oldest, so he's my first. My husband and I, the first 3 3 weeks that he was home, we did not sleep through the night. We took shifts because we were both so scared something happening at night that we just took shifts on staying awake with him. Like, I remember, like, just sitting up in the middle of the night. Plus, I was also breastfeeding, so I've got, like, next to no sleep too. Because
Yeah.
even whenever I was
Yes.
supposed to be sleeping, he'd
Yes.
it was
Yes.
awful. It's like
Yes.
it was just scary. It was scary. Like, this is how human beings in my care that I have to take care of, nothing happened to.
Yes.
It's like your body's just like overwhelmed with all these emotions, and
Yes.
you obviously love them to death, and like you don't want anything to happen to them. So like you do crazy things, like sleep for 3 hours, and then go let's
Yes.
get up again, and that's it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I remember that so vividly as well. One of the ways that it showed up for me was not being able to leave them with another caregiver. And I'm talking about for years, right? Like grandparents, babies, that didn't exist in my mind because in my mind, again, we're talking about perception, right? And like they needed me. If I wasn't there, like my mindset was like no one else could protect them. I had to be there. And so that really took a toll, right? Because you also, at the same time that you hold that, you also desperately want a break, right? And you desperately want a minute to yourself. And there's this constant pull, at least for me, there was between these two realities. And so I'm with you to go back to your statement about moms being so depleted. Moms that we know of, and there's not a lot of research out there on this, we know lose at least 10% of their mineral stores. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but it is. It has a real impact. And by the way, most of us are depleted even before we get into conception and pregnancy in some really key minerals. 98% of Americans don't get their recommended daily recommendation of potassium. So that's a lot of us out there. And then we go into a situation like pregnancy that demands more, right? There's a higher demand. What do women and pregnant individuals complain about? Leg cramps. That's magnesium, potassium depletion. Hair loss in postpartum, brittle or nails that break or our skin, right? Skin issues. All of these are indicators of mineral loss, right? And yes, not having
Also sleep issues too. I remember like my dentist was like all like harping on treat it with your teeth, do this with your teeth because you don't want to lose your teeth. I'm like, okay, I get it.
yes, absolutely. So the body doesn't have the calcium or the bioavailable calcium to pull from to make that baby. It's going to pull from where it needs to. So teeth. So yeah, all of this. And then, like you said, you add a traumatic birth or even a birth experience that wasn't what we had hoped for. There's the emotion of that. And then just postpartum in general is stressful. Our brain is completely reshaping itself to learn to be a mother, and that is hard and stressful. There's the lack of sleep, there's the extra demands of life that we just naturally have, whether it's being having to go to work again, keeping the house clean or the laundry going, all of this. And then again, you add breastfeeding. And all I hear every time I'm saying each of those mineral depletion is all of this is requiring more minerals that you are probably already depleted in. So it's super important, I think, especially for moms to get those minerals back in the body so that we can show up, right? In the way that we want to in life for ourselves, for our children, for our family. I think most of us want to be good parents, want to be present, want to be calm, want to be able to respond in a way that's attuned. And I think it's so beautiful that it removes shame from moms when we say, guess what? Maybe it's that your body doesn't have what it needs to be able to respond that way. Wait, what? Yeah, let's get it. It helps them so much to not feel like I'm just a bad mom or I'm just horrible at this or I'm just not capable of this. It might be more you just are needing something that you don't have right now.
Yeah, that is so true and just so amazing. Or I feel like we can talk about this for hours
Okay.
and just then so much fun. So I'm so happy that I got to connect with you again and I've missed you so much. But what's like a tip or trick that you'd want to leave people with for them to take with them into their daily life?
Yes. I'm going to say, and this is a pretty safe recommendation, is get some food based sources or natural sources, not synthetic, of magnesium in. Because this is one of the other ones I see so often show up for people that because most of us are just like low key, low level stressed, right? So the ways that we can do this is spring water, mineral water are great sources of magnesium. Get magnesium bath flakes, right? If you're a parent of littles and you are bathing your kids most nights still, throw it in their bathtub, soak your feet in the tub with them, and they're getting magnesium and you're getting magnesium, and it's great. There's also lotions or oils that you could put on topically because magnesium can be absorbed transdermally or through the skin. Look at some of these sources and support your body in a one step at a time. We do not have to do an overnight overhaul of your entire diet, of your entire life and routine, but start with one place and say, I'm going to do one nourishing habit and then introduce one new nourishing food into my family and make it a habit, make it consistent, and start there.
Good advice. And I'm like thinking about one of the people that Lisa knows she makes this magnesium spray
Oh,
that
love
everyone
it.
like recommends. I think I might actually get that one now.
Perfect. Yes, put it on at bedtime and watch your littles go to sleep so much quicker. It's wonderful.
Yeah, really nice because my son is
Oh, no. Yes, try it, Kira. I swear by it, and report back, please.
what is like the best for people to find you to like get in touch with you? Because honestly, if you were licensed and if I was in your state, I'd be like hitting you up all the time.
And you still can, and you can the beautiful part and another reason why I do the HTMA is because I can do that with anyone in the world, which is wonderful. In terms of therapy land, I am licensed in California and Montana. And as we said, I practice virtually, which is great. For the HTMA, you can be anywhere in the world, and I can work with you on that if that's what you're interested in. My website is my name, Atara, Atara, Parkinson, Parkinson.com. You can reach out through there. I have a blog on there that talks about some different aspects of minerals. And then I love also connecting on my Instagram. That's probably where I'm most active, although it goes to Facebook and Pinterest and all the places. But I'm at atara.parkinson. And then for the NICU stuff, my handle there is NICU Freedom. And that's a place that we can connect if that's a way that you've been impacted in life and you want to learn more about that.
But awesome. So all your links will be down below as well. People to easily click on so they can get in touch with you because
Love it.
everyone just needs this like and just in life like yeah, just get your life steady. And if
Oh,
anyone's been stressed and like you want just to know like what else is going on other than like normal life, hit up Atara. She will hook
yes.
you up.
Yes. Yeah, we'll see those stress patterns show up in the minerals, and yeah, we'll get you on the right track. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.